listen, I'm going to pick up the conversation on the policy pieces that were essentially adopted this afternoon and bring into the conversation once again our journalist panel, beginning from the left of your screen and moving onwards. Stephanie Levitz, political reporter with the Toronto Star, Nick Taylor-Bassey, reporter with Politico's Ottawa Playbook, and Ian Bailey, Ottawa reporter with the Globe and Mail. You know, when you go through these policies, I think, particularly in the first couple of hours, there are things that were not surprising. Policies to take action against foreign interference, policies around energy, policies around taxation. But we knew going in that the more controversial parts was going to be in the last part of the debate, having to do primarily with transgendered issues. Stephanie, I'll begin with you. The two issues, as Andrew played out there or outlined there, passing with very big majorities. What do you make of that?
I make a couple of things out of it. These are issues right now that society as a whole is grappling with. How to talk about them, how to debate them, what sorts of policies should be in place either way. Are they restrictive, too restrictive? And what you've seen here is a reflection of that debate playing out at the Conservative Policy Convention. That there is so much support for, on the one hand, a ban on medical care, on the other, an affirmation of single-sex spaces. Tells us what 87% of the delegates might think on the single-sex spaces issue. Does that mean it's a settled question for the party or a settled question for Canadians? I don't think so. I think it's just reflective that this is on the minds of a certain segment of the population within the party, and what they're perhaps trying to do is force Mr. Poilievre to articulate his own position on this question. Because one of the things that has bedeviled the Conservatives previously is their leaders end up getting pressed on their personal positions on social policy issues, and if they can't articulate something clearly, it becomes, a real arrow in the quiver for the Liberal Party arsenal. Yeah,
well, I'll pick up on that in a moment, but continue going down. Your reaction to what was passed today, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, the convention's policies on gender issues in particular did serve up ammunition for the Liberals and the New Democrats. And it's as predictable as the sun rising in the morning that those two parties will eventually, in some form, use that as an attack. But clearly the delegates in the room are not concerned about that. They spoke with maybe not exactly one voice. It was not unanimous, but it was a pretty solid vote in favor of most of those motions.
So that was overwhelming majority, and a double majority because it has to pass, as we've been noting, the sheer number in the room, in addition to all the regions that have to also give majority. But you pick up on that point, Ian, this idea that it becomes a wedge issue now for Liberals to use in the next election campaign, for the NDP to use as well.
Well, absolutely, and perhaps not before. We won't have to wait till the next election campaign, but I'm sure that next week and starting then, Liberals will seize on some of these issues to try and knock Mr. Poilievre off his disciplined focus on economic issues and such. I spoke earlier about dissension possibly coming up in this session, and there was no direct challenge of Mr. Poilievre, but indirectly, obviously, members, his base, speaking out on some of these social policy issues, raise questions that he'll have to answer in the next while. And I'm sure that the Liberals and the NDP in particular, and probably the Bloc as well, will start raising these questions as early as tomorrow. And it's going to be interesting to see how he responds in a way that sort of settles some of these issues.
Yeah, Stephanie, was also interesting, though, because as we saw, there was a microphone for those who were in favor of motions, a microphone for those who were against the motions, and those who stood up against these trans-specific motions on gender-affirming therapy, on terms of exclusivity for cisgendered women. They were making the warning, if you actually pass this, you make the Conservative Party vulnerable and possibly eat away at the lead that they currently enjoy in the polls. Do you see that happening?
Sometimes I am like Charlie Brown in the Peanuts, the football, and you think maybe this time is going to be different and Lucy is not going to pull it away. And there's some part of me that wants to believe that, hey, maybe this won't be a wedge issue. Maybe we can agree as a society that if we make it a wedge issue, that's the thing that threatens trans rights. When, we're at a place where society needs to have a conversation about this that cannot be politically polarized, that cannot be turned into a series of attack ads, that we can find an adult and grown-up way to discuss this next path forward for rights and freedoms of all Canadians. I'm Charlie Brown in the football. I mean, I don't see a way in which the Liberals, unfortunately, and the New Democrats don't seek to polarize this, don't seek to weaponize this against Mr. Poilievre, and draw the country into what could potentially be a nasty and ugly political debate over an issue that is highly sensitive for many, many people. And I'm getting a bit upset about it, I guess, because our political system politicizes these things that are life and death issues for people. And then what does that leave us as a society to talk about them for real?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because we've seen that in the United States,
exactly.
And in many ways, it's now coming north of the border, and it's made its presence known in this convention. But listen, of course, we'll keep talking about this as this goes on. But I need to move on because I don't want to lose all the time. I do want to talk about the position this now leaves Pierre Poilievre. He doesn't need to adopt any of these poly positions, but if he wants to maintain the party unity that he has right now, the enthusiasm he has right now amongst the rank and file. How does he deal with this? How does he move forward, especially since an election is still possibly 2 years away, Nick?
Well, I think to Stephanie's point, it gives Poilievre an opportunity, maybe, despite his reputation as being a boisterous leader, to bring the temperature down and to not indulge those attack ads and speak on the issues that he really focused on mostly in his speech to the convention and dozens of rallies over the last 2 years. Talk about affordability and the cost of living and use that turn feelings into words and just not jump into that pit of really an unwinnable fight where everybody just ends up angry and probably voter turnout drops and our politics descends into a ever-worsening discourse. He's got a chance to really take the lead there.
Yeah, pick up on that point, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, he has no choice. This is his base. These are the foundation of his support. So I don't think he has any other choice but to kind of find a way to respect the views that have been expressed today, while perhaps finding some other way not to scare away the swing voters he's going to need going forward. And to what Nicholas said, maybe there is some way to use the term in a statesman-like way to address some of these challenging issues that have been raised today. But, there's no election expected for quite some time. We'll have to see how this plays out and what happens, basically, in the next while. This may be all forgotten as time goes on.
Okay, well, we will see. As we all know, Parliament is back in about a week's time. And more interestingly, in the coming days, the Liberals will be holding their 3-day caucus meeting in London, Ontario. So we'll see how they respond not only to the poll numbers that the Conservatives have been enjoying, the unity that the party has shown here, but also to the issues being adopted at this plenary session today. Listen, Stephanie and Nick and Ian, really appreciate you joining us throughout this whole convention. Thank you for this. I'll buy you dinner in Ottawa when we get back. How about that? Thanks. Okay, you guys take care.